Hey everyone, it's Emily from Life So Savory, and today we're on part 3 of the board short sew along. So this is going to be the pocket portion of the board shorts. So yesterday we did the prep of the pockets as well as sewing the compression shorts to go underneath. And today we're going to be placing those pockets on the side seams of the swimsuit, and they are such a fun pocket feature. They're so flat and streamlined, plus they look amazing in the side pockets, and they're super useful because you have side pockets. So that's what we're going to be doing for this part 3, and then part 4 tomorrow will be the waistband and finishing up this fun set of shorts. So I hope that you are enjoying this series, and if you need to catch up, I've included the links for part 1 and part 2 in the video below or in the description below, and you can check that out. I've given you the Facebook links. If you're looking for the YouTube links, just go to my YouTube channel, YouTube.com/Life So Savory, and then click the live tab, and you will see the parts clearly labeled, as well as this one, live streaming part 3. So they're pretty easy to find because they're all in order on the live. So I have not given you those links. All right. Again, if you're new, here's what we are sewing. These very cute kids board shorts. This one is missing the drawstring. It's floating around our house somewhere. But here's what we're going to be doing. These fun side seam pockets today. They are flat. They lay flat. They have mesh pocket pouches. So the water, sand just goes right through them. They lay nice and flat on the side of the side seam right there. They look amazing. They have a nice facing on them, so you really mostly see the board short fabric and not that mesh, but you can also see the mesh a little bit if you open them up. So there's one pair, here's 2. These are the ones my kids have been wearing all year. Okay, the fun blue pocket mesh. And then of course, the small pair that I made for my daughter. This one with the dark fabric is almost entirely hidden, but again, has that fun mesh blue pocket on it. And these are the pockets that we'll be making today. So I'm going to flip over and pull up the tutorial because I have not sewed this in a while, and I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to do it. So I'm going to keep the comments open. So Mary, I see that you're following along, which is awesome. And also be able to look over here at the actual tutorial. Okay, so I'm getting the sewing machine set up, and then we're going to use this counter here to prep the pieces. Now, if you saw me on Tuesday when I cut these out, remember we did not have enough fabric to cut all 4 of the main pieces out of one. So I decided, rather than cutting the back side of one and the front side of another, to do a back and a front, hopefully going opposite with these fun colors. Okay, so I'm going to lay out right now a front and a back with the side seams together. Okay, so we have the back and a front, and then here's the side seams. Then you're going to take the pocket pouches and we're going to lay them along the side. So the directions say to place them, we're placing them all the way at the top. Okay, so I need the rounded bottom of the pouch goes on the bottom of the towards the bottom of the board short. You're going to line up along the top. Then you're going to line up the side seam. And I'm just going to put a couple pins in here. Okay, so we have that one on the back. And I'm doing them in pairs so that I can see that I'm getting it right type thing. Let's see. All right, so again, you match it up with the top of the suit, the top edge, the side seam, then I'm going to put a couple of pins. My clips are too far to reach, so I'm not going to. Normally I would. All right, and then we're going to serge this down, and we're actually going to serge it all the way to the bottom to finish that side seam. Board short fabric does fray a little bit, so you want to make sure that your seams are finished with either the serger or a zigzag or whatever you want. Okay, so now we're doing the same thing on the second pair. Okay, so we're lining up along the top, lining up along that side seam, and I'm putting a couple of pins in here. All right, and then we'll do that and that. Okay, so now we can sew all 4 of these side seams, or all 4 of these sides of the shorts on the serger, which will finish the edge of the fabric and start the pocket process. All right, so I'm going to come over here, turn on the serger, and I'm going to sew up these 4 things, okay, these 4 pockets. And like I said, we're going to not only sew the pocket, but you're going to sew then all the way down the side to finish the rest of the way down these shorts. Because you'll see in a minute, we're going to sew the side seams in a little bit less traditional fashion, but it makes the pockets lay in the side seam so perfectly flat. It's absolutely worth it. All right, looks like I might need to adjust my differential feed just a little bit. Getting a little puckered there. All right. So sewing the side number 2. All the way down. I'm not really taking off any fabric. I'm just literally finishing it. Okay, so I'm not taking a big seam allowance as I'm going along there. All right. And number 3. Oops. Pin on the floor. And number 4, I should have put the pins on the other side because these I have to sew with the non-pocket part up. Then I'll move in the camera a little bit closer to the sewing machine because of the rest of today's tutorial or sew along will just take place on the sewing machine. Well, I guess we'll come back and sew the inseams and stuff in a minute. Okay, so let's pull this a little bit closer so you can see what's going on with the sewing machine. All right, so the next step is to open these up and top stitch. Okay, so you saw yesterday, after we sewed the pocket facing on, I top stitched along here. We're going to do the same thing this time, and we're going to top stitch I have to make sure the seam allowance is going the right way. We're going to top stitch the seam allowance towards the pocket, so out from the shorts towards the pocket. Okay, so I'm pushing the seam allowance over. If you want to press this, you can. I'm not. Maybe I should change my, it's just like an off-white color. Put something brighter on there. And then you can just back stitch at the bottom. You'll be able to see it nicely. Okay, so I have the seam set at, this a little bit brighter. Set at 3. And now it's top stitched where we sewed the facing on and where we just sewed along the side seam. Okay, so you're gonna do the same thing for all 4 pieces. And this is where, if this wasn't a Sew Along live video, if this was a pre-recorded video, I would speed this part up since we're gonna do the same thing 4 times here. Luckily, it's not a very long seam and it should go pretty quick along here. Oh, okay, so yeah, make sure that you open it and the side seam faces the pocket away from the shorts. So you notice I have 2 facings that match the shorts and 2 facings that don't. So I made all the facings the splatter fabric, and we have 2 pieces that are splatter and 2 pieces that are stripes. We'll see how this all looks once we start putting this together. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it, but I think it's gonna be okay. And it's just a swimsuit. If my son doesn't want to wear it when he's around his friends, he can just wear it around the family. All right, so there is a pocket starting, okay? You can see it's coming together. It's got the top stitching on there. It looks good. We've done that to all 4. All right, so now I'm going to do this right here on the side. We're going to stack 2 pieces. So this is a back, I believe. So I need the front. Yeah, and this is the front. Okay, so I want to make sure I have a back and a front and a back and a front. All right, so you're going to stack the side seams and line them up as perfectly as you can along there. Okay, so you can see I've just laid them on top of each other and I have those stacked. We want the facings to be stacked and the side to be stacked. Now, we're going to measure, according to a chart, where we're going to sew, because we're going to leave a pocket opening. So the first one, make sure these, you want your side seams to really be lined up as closely as possible. Okay, we're going to mark 1 inch from the top. That's where we're going to sew for the top part. And now for the hand opening, I need to grab my tape measure here. And there's a chart in the pattern that tells you how big you're going to make it depending on what size you're making. So I'm making the largest size. So we are making a 6-inch opening. Okay, so I'm measuring from that first pin that's 1 inch down, 6 inches down. Making sure the side seams are stacked, and then we're going to put a second pin. Okay, and then I'm going to put just a couple more to hold this in place. All right, so now we're going to sew this side together. So I'm going to sew the first inch right here. Can you, I don't know if you can see what I'm pointing at. Here, let me see. Okay, yeah. All right, so the first inch I'm going to sew here. Then we're going to skip the 6 inches. Then we're going to sew the second part from here all the way down the rest of the shorts. Okay, so this 6-inch opening will be where the hand can fit in. All right, so let's start. You want to be on the inside of both of the side seams, which is why lining them up as closely as possible is important because it just makes it easier to sew. But this is going to look so good when we're done. So you're going to love it. All right. So I'm sewing on the inside of where that serger finished. Okay. And then I'm going to cut it. And then I'm going to skip down here. And I have my fabrics lined up. You can feel through if it's lined up or not. Did I go back? And then you're going to sew on the inside of that serged edge where we finished the edge of this all the way down the side of the shorts. All right, so that's the next step in our pocket insertion. Take out those pins, and now we can open up the side seam. The pocket is looking awesome. It's not done yet, but you can see that it is practically hidden in here so perfectly based on how we stitch that. You have the two facings right in there. We have the pocket, and we can open it up. We're going to open it up to top stitch here in a minute. Okay. And you've got a hole where the pocket will be in a minute. Okay. So it's getting there. I'm going to, let's see, bring my tutorial back up just to make sure I'm doing this correctly. All right, we're going to do the same thing on the other side before we move on to the next step. So I'm laying my side seam, or the side seam right here. Then I'm laying the other piece on top of it, one back and one front. And then again, with the side seams lined up as perfectly as you can, you're going to pin 1 inch down from the top. Then from that 1 inch, you're going to measure down 6 inches. I'm going to just mark this, and then I'm going to feel that I'm lining those up, and you're going to mark that. Okay, so that's the opening. I'm going to put a couple more pins down here, and we're about to sew the second side seam. All right, so let's do the same thing again. We're going to sew that top 1 inch, back stitching at the beginning and the end. Okay, then we're going to go down to the bottom. Okay, so now we have side number 2 open. We can open the pocket. It's not sewed up yet, but we have a nice looking side seam with a hidden side pocket that lays so flat along there. We're going to do some top stitching here in a minute. That's going, I know, I see. You won't lose them in a crowd. No, you won't. These are pretty bright. Okay, so we're going to open up. I'm just looking. We're going to open up and we're going to top stitch the pocket to the front. So on this one, I can see that this piece is smaller. So this is the front. Okay, so I'm going to pin this nice and flat. Okay. And we're going to do a little fancy top stitching, okay? So if you've looked on maybe the side of pockets, you'll see I just want to double check. Sometimes there's a zigzag for reinforcement, and then we're going to zigzag at the top. We're going to go down for a little edge stitching, and then we're going to do a zigzag on the side. And again, we're doing this with the pocket. Here's the pocket pouch. One towards the front and one towards the back. We are still going to sew them together. We just haven't gotten there yet. All right, so I'm making a narrow zigzag a narrow, close together zigzag. And we're just going to do it for about 3/8 of an inch. Okay. Then we're going to turn this. We're going to pivot. I don't love the white, but honestly, it's going to be easier for you guys to see. So I'm keeping it. Okay. And we're stitching down about a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Down. The pocket pouch is being stitched through and the front of the suit. Okay. Then when I get to where the bottom of the pocket is, we're going to pivot it again. I'm going to go back to my narrow, close together zigzag. And we're going to finish the bottom of the pocket. And this adds, it's really fun in coordinating colors, but actually I'm glad I did it in white so you can see this. Okay. It makes it lay so nicely. It also gives a really cute detail right there on the side of the pocket. Okay. So you can see zigzagging on the bottom and the top, and then that straight stitch across. And it's just going to make the pocket on the back side and the front side lay so nicely in that side seam of the suit. All right, so there's one. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Oh my goodness. It just, when you look at the side seam, it just lays so nicely sewn like this. All right. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So you want to make sure you find the front and open up the pockets because we only want to stitch the front to the front. I don't want to stitch both sides of the pocket, not yet. Okay, so we're opening up that front and then pinning that facing nice and flat to the front of the suit. Okay, so it should open up and you should be able to see your work table or your counter or whatever you have underneath of it. Okay, we shouldn't see the pocket. All right, so we're going to open this up. All right, and we still have that close zigzag set from when we did the second side, so we can leave that. Now we're going to again turn and pivot, and so down straight, about a 3/8 of an inch, all the way to the top of the pocket, and we're going to turn it again. And put it close together. And zigzag along the top. All right, so now this one's on the stripe. The other one was on the paint splatter. Okay, so now there's the second part of the pocket. Sewn up and top stitched. Looking really good right there. Okay, looks awesome. I am checking your comments as I'm also following along in my own tutorial so I don't make mistakes. Okay. Now we are going to sew the pocket pouch together. Okay. So we're going to open this up. The side seam is done. The pocket is actually done. So the next thing is to sew this. We do not need to sew along the top because that's going to get caught in the waistband. You need to sew around the bottom. So you can either do this with a serger or with sewing machine. You can tell I don't like using pins. I actually am going to use the sewing machine just because when you get to this corner here, it's really hard to do with the serger. So you either need to start on the serger and then come back and sew this corner, or I'm just going to sew it with a zigzag, a wide zigzag this time around to finish the pocket. You can do both. You can do whatever you want. So the pocket lays really nice and flat on top of each other. So you shouldn't have to mess with it to get it lined up. It should lay really nicely. So I'm just putting a couple pins in there. I'm going to change my zigzag to wider and not quite as close together. If I can hit the right stitch. All right, and so we're going to sew from the bottom of this pocket all the way around. And this mesh is a little bit stretchy. I do not need it so close together. Too close together. We don't want the sand to stay in. We want the sand to go through. I was making it like a fine seam. So of course you could do around on the serger and then just finish that tight corner where you can't really get in with a good serger seam if you want, or you can leave it like this. Okay, so there's the pocket sewn with the, and now probably put a pin or a clip towards the front. You're going to fold the pocket towards the front on the back side. But if you look at this side seam, look at how nice and flat that pocket lays in it. Okay, it's beautiful in there. It lays nicely. It has that mesh pocket and it lays so lovely and looks great along that side seam. All right, so that is the one side. You go ahead and sew the other pocket. Again, I'm not sewing the top. You could if you want, just to baste it shut, but that will be enclosed when we baste the compression shorts and sew on the waistband. So there's a lot more to be sewn along the top of the suit. So we'll just do that then. So I'm just making sure that when I get to this place where it connects to the side seam, that I'm back stitching and going back and forth a couple times to really reinforce that so that corner doesn't come out. All right, so this one, the stripes is the front. So I'm going to pull this piece to the front, line it up along the top, go ahead and put a pin, and then you can see we have a second beautiful pocket on the inside and on the outside. Okay, it just lays so nice in that side seam. All right, so the next thing to do is we're going to sew up the front and the back curved seams. And we'll see if my wild pattern design is what I hoped it would be. All right, so we're going to sew the front to the front, the back to the back, and the inseam, and then we're going to actually be finished for today. All right, so I'm sewing up the back, 3/8 inch seam allowance with the serger, which is giving a nice seam. This doesn't really need a stretch stitch if you don't want, because board short fabric is not stretchy. It is not stretchy at all. But I like the finish that it gives, and it also keeps the fabric from fraying. So I'm going to use the serger. Now we're going to place the front seams together and sew the same front curved crotch seam. At this point, the directions give you details for creating a faux fly on the front. So if you would like on the front of the suit to create a faux fly with stitching, the instructions give you the information for that. I can show you what that looks like on my son's suit. Okay, can you see there? So I stitched out a faux fly with some straight stitching, top stitching, a little zigzag reinforcement along the seams like you would see on a fly. You have all those details. Those are included in the instructions. We're going to skip it on this one because the fabric is so crazy. I don't think we need any more top stitching detail on there. So for the last thing I'm going to do for today is we're going to sew up the inseam from the bottom of one leg to the crotch across to the other leg. Okay. And then you will want to check the length before you hem it. So I'm not going to hem this because I'm actually going to have my son try these on and double check tonight when he comes home. And then tomorrow when we finish this up, we'll do the hemming and we'll add on the waistband. Okay, so let's take a look and see how it's coming together. I think it's looking fabulous. We have super crazy fabric going for sure. Oh boy. Okay. So here we have, those are the back. Here's the front. So it actually is every other panel like I wanted. Okay, so it's opposites, right? And they're definitely bright. So we'll see. The colors go together. Do the patterns go together? I'm not sure, but this is what I had using up spare board short fabric. All right. So we have the waistband to put on, and then we have the hem to do, and then we'll be finished. So tomorrow, come back for part 4. We're going to add the waistband, show you how to top stitch the elastic. I need to make sure that I get the elastic out and measure my son's waist tonight so that I have the right length of elastic to sew in tomorrow. But it might be slightly longer because it just takes a little bit longer. I'm also going to show you how to put on the tie pieces like this with the lacings. Oh, this one has it all the way sewn up. Okay, so you could do the lacings along here, right? And sew in these cute lacings with these sort of faux, I don't know what these are, flaps that are on a board short. Not always sure what's aesthetic and what is purposeful, but that's what we have. So tomorrow, come back to finish these up in part 4. If you're just joining today, you can go back and check out part 2. In part 2 is the link for part 1. And I think maybe I gave you the link to part 1 and 2 in this. You can go ahead and check those out. And we'll finish it up tomorrow. So thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next time and have a great day. Bye.